Okay, so get this right. We're going deep on something today that
Yeah.
might just have you looking sideways at your investments.
Oh,
Yeah, so it involves this Indian billionaire, Gautam Adani.
okay.
There are some serious bribery allegations, and get this, a potential twist. All thanks to the incoming Trump administration.
Wow.
Our source is this recent article from the Telegraph India. And
Interesting.
believe me, it's a wild ride.
I bet. What's really got my attention is this isn't just some legal case happening, on the other side of the world.
Right.
There are actually connections that lead right back to the U.S.
Yep.
And it could have a real impact on American citizens.
Exactly. So let's break it down. The article, it lays out these pretty heavy bribery charges against Adani,
Okay.
his nephew, Sagar Adani, and his associate, Vineet Jain.
Uh-huh.
We're talking $250 million allegedly paid to Indian officials.
Wow. And that's where things get especially interesting, I think, for our American listeners. See, one of Adani's companies, Adani Green, they raised a good chunk of money from U.S. investors.
Really?
Over $175 million. And this all happened during the same time this alleged bribery was going down.
So wait, are you saying that some of our listeners might actually be tied into this whole mess?
Potentially, yeah. And it gets even more, I guess you could say more tangled, because the article quotes this attorney, Ravi Batra,
Okay.
and he suggests that the entire case against Adani, the whole thing, could be thrown out.
What?
Yeah, if the incoming Trump administration decides it's, and I'm quoting here, unworthy or defective.
Hold on. How could that even happen? You're telling me a new president can just come in and just decide to drop a major bribery case?
Well, Batra's argument, it really hinges on this concept of lawfare,
Lawfare.
Yeah, lawfare. It's basically the idea that the legal system's being used as, like, a weapon,
Oh.
not to actually achieve justice, but, take down rivals. And Batra thinks that Trump might just see this Adani case as an example of, lawfare.
Okay.
And so choose not to pursue it.
So what does all that mean in plain English?
Okay. Think of it this way. You've got two companies. They're competing for some big contract, right?
Yeah.
And one of them accuses the other of some kind of wrongdoing just to knock them out of the running.
Oh, I see.
That's lawfare.
Got it.
It's using the legal system for, I guess you could say, strategic advantage, not really about pure justice,
Okay, so potentially a big shakeup in the case itself because of U.S. politics.
Right.
But how does this whole lawfare idea affect, like, those American investors that we were talking about earlier?
Well, imagine you're one of those investors, right? You put your money into Adani Green, you did your due diligence, everything seems legit, right?
Yeah.
Then boom,
What?
bribery allegations surface, and suddenly the whole case might just get dropped because of some political calculations in another country.
That's just a nightmare scenario.
Yeah, it would make anyone question the whole system,
Exactly. It
Yeah.
would make people question, like, the whole idea of investor confidence,
Yeah.
especially when you're dealing with international companies. If U.S. investors feel like the legal rug can be pulled out from under them because of political maneuvering,
Yeah,
it's going to make them think twice before investing abroad.
absolutely.
And that kind of hesitancy, that could have a ripple effect throughout the entire U.S. economy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, less investment, fewer jobs, slower growth, less innovation. We haven't even touched on the impact on the stock market yet.
Right.
Remember Azure Power,
Yeah.
another company involved in all this?
Yeah.
Well, their stock was traded on the New York Stock Exchange.
Oh, wow. So this isn't just some far-off legal drama.
Nope.
This is tangled up with the U.S. financial system. Big time.
Exactly. And it raises even more questions because, we're also facing a changing landscape in terms of the people actually overseeing our financial and legal systems. The article mentions that the current SEC chair, appointed by Biden, is going to be stepping down.
And it's not just the SEC chair.
Right.
It's several U.S. attorneys.
Yeah.
They're either resigning or expected to be replaced pretty soon.
That's right. So what we're looking at is a potential shift in priorities and perspectives within these very institutions. The ones that are supposed to be investigating this case.
Yeah.
The ones protecting American interests.
So it's like a whole new set of players are coming in,
Yeah,
and we have absolutely no idea how they're going to approach this whole Adani situation.
exactly. And that's what makes things really interesting here, because the article actually draws a parallel to something that happened back in 2017
Okay.
when Preet Vara, a U.S. attorney, was fired by the Trump administration.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah.
Barra refused refused to resign when a bunch of other Obama-appointed attorneys were asked to step down.
Right.
And then Trump ended up firing him.
He did.
What's that tell us?
Well, it shows how a new administration, they can come in and they can make sweeping changes.
Yeah.
Even removing individuals who might not necessarily align with their approach or agenda.
So you're saying the same thing could potentially happen with the people overseeing the Adani case?
It's certainly a possibility, yeah. And it really raises questions about how much influence the Trump administration might exert on the investigation.
Right.
And potential prosecution of Adani and his associates.
And we can't forget, this is not a simple bribery case happening within the U.S.
Nope.
Batra, the attorney we mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
he brought up that whole concept of extraterritoriality.
Right, which essentially means applying U.S. laws to people who don't even live here in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
And, that's not always straightforward. It raises a bunch of questions about jurisdiction, about international cooperation, and about the reach of American legal authority.
So even though Adani and everyone involved in this case are in India, the U.S. law might still apply to them
Potentially.
because they were dealing with American investors in the U.S. stock market.
That's the heart of it, yeah. And it's one of the many reasons why this case is so incredibly complex and why it has the potential to set some major precedents.
Okay, so let me get this straight.
Yeah.
We've got these allegations of bribery.
Yes.
We've got potential political influence on the case.
Huh.
We've got the impact on U.S. investors.
Yeah.
And we've got this whole concept of extraterritoriality.
Right.
I'm starting to see why this is such a huge deal
It is.
for us here in America.
It really is. And to understand just how big, I think we need to kind of delve deeper into some of these key aspects.
All right.
You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Welcome back to our deep dive, into the Gautam Adani case
Yeah.
and what it could all mean for the U.S.
As we dig deeper into this, one thing that really sticks out to me is the impact on American citizens. The ones who invested in Adani Green. What happens to those people if this case actually gets dropped or, altered because of political maneuvering?
That's a really critical question. And there are a few scenarios, to think about.
Okay.
The first is those investors could see a decline, in the value of their investment.
Oh, yeah.
If Adani Green's reputation is kind of tarnished by these allegations
Yeah.
and a perception of political favoritism,
Right.
it just makes the company less attractive, to other investors and drives that stock price down.
And for everyday Americans, the ones who might have put their retirement savings or college funds into Adani Green,
Right.
that kind of loss could be devastating.
Absolutely. It could erode their trust in the system,
Yeah.
make them hesitant to invest in the future, especially in companies with international operations.
Beyond the financial impact, what about the legal implications for these investors?
Yeah.
Do they have any recourse if they believe they were misled or defrauded?
It's tricky because we're talking about a foreign company and a potentially complex web of international regulations.
Right.
Investors might be able to pursue legal action in India,
Oh, wow.
but that would be a costly and uncertain process.
So they're essentially caught in this legal limbo.
Yeah, pretty much.
Their money's tied up in a company facing serious allegations,
Yeah,
but they might not have any way to get their losses back
right.
if the case is dropped, for political reasons.
That's a real possibility, and it really highlights the vulnerabilities of investing in international markets,
Yeah.
especially when there's a potential for political interference in the legal process.
It makes you wonder about the role of U.S. regulators in all of this.
Uh-huh.
What are they doing to protect American investors who are exposed to these kinds of situations?
Well, the SEC has certain powers, to investigate and
Yeah.
take action against companies that violate U.S. securities laws,
Right.
even if those companies are based overseas.
Yeah.
But their ability to actually enforce those laws in a case like this is still unclear.
Especially with a new administration coming in
Exactly.
and potentially shifting priorities, as we were talking about earlier.
Right, and that brings us back to the whole idea of extraterritoriality, the U.S. government's ability to apply its laws to Adani and his associates in India.
Uh-huh.
It hinges on showing a clear connection to U.S. interests and jurisdiction.
So it's not as simple as just saying, hey, you committed bribery and some of your investors investors are Americans, so you're subject to U.S. law.
Not at all. There needs to be a very strong legal basis
Right.
for applying U.S. law, in this way, and that can be a complex and contentious issue.
It sounds like there are a lot of gray areas here,
There are.
which makes it even more difficult for those American investors who are caught in the middle.
Exactly. And it underscores the importance of having these strong international legal frameworks
Okay.
and cooperation to address these kinds of situations,
Yeah.
where actions taken in one country can have a huge impact on citizens and investors in another.
One thing that's been kind of bugging me throughout this whole discussion is this question of fairness.
Yeah.
If this case against Adani is dropped or changed because of politics,
Right.
what message does that send to the world about the U.S. legal system?
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
It could create this perception that American justice is for sale,
Oh, wow.
that political connections and influence can be more important than the rule of law.
Wow.
And that's a dangerous precedent to set, not just for international companies,
Yeah.
but for our own citizens as well.
Because if people start to lose faith in the fairness and impartiality of the legal system, it undermines the foundation of our democracy
Yeah.
and erodes trust in our institutions.
Precisely. It creates this sense of uncertainty and cynicism,
Right.
and that can have far-reaching consequences for our entire society.
It all feels a bit overwhelming, to be honest.
I know.
We've got potential financial losses for American investors,
Yeah.
legal complexities involving extraterritoriality, the possibility of political influence on the case, and the broader implications for America's reputation on the world stage. Where do we even begin to unpack all of this?
I get it can feel overwhelming,
Yeah.
but it's important to remember that we're not powerless in this situation.
Okay.
We can stay informed, we can engage in thoughtful discussions,
Yeah.
and hold our elected officials accountable for their actions.
So even though this case originated in India,
Right?
it's not just a them problem.
Yeah.
It's something that American citizens need to pay attention to
Yes.
and try to understand.
Absolutely, because in today's world, what happens on one side of the globe can have a real and tangible impact on our lives right here at home.
Oh, welcome back, deep divers. It's time to wrap up our look at this Gautam Adani case. And honestly, my head's spinning a bit.
Yeah, I get it.
We've uncovered so many layers, bribery allegations, potential political interference, all those international legal complexities.
Right.
And of course, the impact on, those American citizens who invested in Adani Green.
It's definitely a tangled web.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why we're here. We try to make sense of it all.
Exactly.
And as we kind of reach this final chapter in our deep dive, one question really sticks out. What could this case mean for the future?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about those immediate consequences for U.S. investors.
Right.
Well, what about the long-term implications?
Yeah.
For American businesses, for our standing in the world?
Well, one potential outcome is what they call a chilling effect on foreign investment.
Okay.
If international companies see that U.S. investors might be left hanging, if a case gets dropped just because of political pressure,
Yeah.
they might be less likely to seek funding in the U.S.
And that would be a huge blow to the American economy.
Huge.
Less foreign investment, that means fewer jobs, slower growth, less innovation.
Exactly. It could also damage our reputation, as a reliable, stable place to do business.
Yeah.
The U.S. has always been proud of having a strong legal system that protects investors. But if that starts to erode, it has a ripple effect, across all sectors.
And we also have to think about the impact on U.S. foreign policy, too.
Oh, absolutely.
If other countries see the U.S. bending the rules for some, politically connected billionaire,
Yeah.
what message does that send
Right.
about our commitment to fair play, to the rule of law?
It could totally undermine our credibility on the world stage.
Yeah.
Might make it harder for us to, advocate for human rights,
Right.
fight corruption, promote democratic values abroad.
Yeah.
Other countries could look at us as hypocrites.
So this case has the potential to touch everything,
It does.
from individual investors' portfolios to, the global perception of the U.S. It's a lot to process.
It is, and it's important to remember we're still early in this story.
Sure.
The incoming Trump administration hasn't officially taken any action yet.
Right.
So we're really just speculating about how they might handle this whole Adani case.
Right. But it's not like we're just sitting around waiting for something to happen. We as American citizens, we have a role to play in all those ways.
Oh, absolutely. We can stay informed about, developments in the case,
Yeah.
voice our concerns to our elected officials, and just demand transparency and accountability from, those in power.
So what should our listeners be watching for in the coming weeks and months? What are the key things that could kind of tell us how this situation might unfold?
Keep an eye on any statements or actions from the new administration. Anything about the Adani case.
Okay.
Pay attention to who they appoint to those key positions
Well,
within the Justice Department, the SEC,
right.
and watch for any signs of pressure, being put on investigators, on prosecutors to drop or change those charges against Adani.
It's like we're all armchair detectives now.
Kinda, yeah.
Trying to piece together the clues and, see what might happen next.
But it's also about being engaged citizens, the ones who understand what's at stake and who are willing to speak up for what they believe in.
Well said. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the Gautam Adani case. I want to thank all of our listeners, for joining us on this journey. It's been a complex and at times, I got to say, unsettling exploration. But I hope you've gained a deeper understanding of how, things that seem so far away, they can have this whiffle effect, one that reaches all the way back to us here at home.
Remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about the world around us, the better we are at dealing with the challenges, the opportunities, whatever lies ahead.
Right.
So keep asking those questions, stay curious, and never stop seeking the truth.